last several years, there's been a change in the way that we get our media, and that's towards more electronic media. With this comes the topic of books. So the change we've seen over the last several years is a move away from paper and physical books into what are called e-books or e-text. The reason this is important is because there's many advantages to making the change, even though many people shy away from making this sort of change. While the opposition to this change is not completely irrelevant, the disadvantages are far outweighed by the advantages to making a change towards e-textbooks. So before we start talking about the advantages of e-textbooks or e-text or any e-books, electronic media, we first must discuss the concerns by the opposing party for why they don't want to go towards e-text. So the first thing that comes up is normally the tradition. People like to have a physical book in their hand. They like the tradition of going and get the book and having the traditional book in their hand. I wouldn't say that we get completely away from having a physical book. Rather than a substitution for books, for electronic books, I think it's better to have more of a implementation, so have them intertwine with each other so you can use both medias to access the books that you need. Now, Roxanne Weber and David Leonhardt, in two different Roxanne Webers in the top 10 reviews and David Leonhardt in THGM Writers, cover the disadvantages of going to e-text or e-books. Upon these disadvantages, many of them can be either disproven or justified with just a simple couple words. The first one that we see is the concern for piracy. So when you put something out there electronically, it's a lot easier to pirate, to illegally copy it and distribute it elsewhere. What I have to say to this is that it's very easy to do that with regular books as well, with copy machines, photos. It's easy. If someone wants to pirate something, they will. That's more of an ethical dilemma that people face in piracy, and not specifically an electronic text form. Another one that we see is battery life. So on your electronic tablet or computer or phone, whatever you're using to access this book, you have to make sure it's charged, make sure it has batteries. This is a relevant concern by the opposing party. However, it's a minor inconvenience to have to charge your device, whatever you're going to use to get that electronic book. Another one would be longevity. When you have a physical book, it's there until you either lose it or it's destroyed. It's there in real life. You have it that you can hold in your hand. Now the electronic books, you can't do the same thing. It's somewhere in cyberspace, and you don't actually have that physical copy. While this is very true, we can see the increase in longevity of ebooks actually past the life of regular print books. And this is because you can have an account with your book on it and use it in different tablets, phones, computers. So the real effect of this is that you can actually have it longer as those devices wear down and become older. You can get a new device and still have the same material that you had before. We see three different parties be extremely benefited from making the change to electronic text. One of these is the consumer. So you have people who buy the material see a lot of benefits from the change to e-text rather than regular publication. Space and storage is a huge one. And Raymond Zayson from Success Conscious actually covers the space and the storage issue, to where you could have 1,000 or 10,000 books held on a single device, depending on your memory storage. So no longer we have to worry about having all that material accessible and being able to store the material that you need. And speaking of accessibility, that's another one she covers in this article. You always have it at the touch of your hands. If your book collection's at home and you're at work and you need to reference something, you have it electronically on your e-text. Another one is that it's overall cheaper. Jill Harness in Top 10 Reviews actually goes into that it covers 50 to 70% cheaper to buy an electronic book rather than a first edition text, which is obviously a huge positive to electronic text and to the consumer, is to save some money. Plus you save a little bit of money and time. You don't have that delivery cost whenever you're using e-text, because it's as soon as you get it, it's right there. So that flips over to a second party that is benefited greatly from e-text, and that is the producers. The assistant admin from University Colleges and Schools research site says it's virtually no cost to produce this publication electronically. Speaking of ink, paper, to operate the printers, all of that goes away, and that cost declines as they can push it out from the cyberspace. The e-text also comes the increased availability to purchase for the buyer, which is obviously a positive for the producer. They can really just benefit from people online going in, hitting the one-click buy, and having it immediately. It gives the consumer more of a reason to purchase, which is a positive for the producer. This brings me to my final party that is benefited from changing to e-text rather than print publication, and that is the environment overall. And Matthew Lynch actually covers this in his article, the basic effects that it has to switch to from regular publication to electronic text. And that is, no trees have to die, which is quite obvious. You're not using the paper, the trees get to stay up, more oxygen in the air. So altogether, good for the environment. On the inverse side of that, when people are done with books and they're discarded, these books aren't going to be filling up landfills, and really just that physical material is out of the universe, so it stays as trees and doesn't end up in landfills. And also the energy that I spoke of earlier about the printing process, using all that energy, that also takes a toll on the environment. So the three parties that really benefit from making the change to e-text over regular publication is the consumer and the producer, as well as the environment. This is important, and everyone should really just accept that e-text is here in the world, and that is for the good and not for the bad. There are those out there that would argue, but their argues, while valid, can be, I guess, disproven or spoke against pretty easily. There's no effect in e-printing like there is a negative effect in e-printing like there is in regular publication. Thank you.